Just making sure that Jerry can't execute.
Welcome back to Sunday Night Magic here from GP Seattle. I am Marshall Sutcliffe. I'm in the booth with Reed Duke, and we are ready to get things rolling in the quarterfinals. Here we have Jerry Thompson facing off against Slater Claudel. Jerry is not playing mono red. He is playing red black. On the other side of the table, his opponent is playing Sultai Constrictor. Now, Jerry represents one of the two black-red decks in the top 8 here. Slater, the only Sultai Constrictor deck. Reed, do you have any thoughts on the matchup from a big picture perspective?
It's very close. I would rather be on Jerry Thompson's side, although that statement is complicated by the fact that Slater Claudel is the higher seed and therefore gets the very crucial play, the first land drop in Game 1 here. However, the black-red aggro deck is very well positioned to take advantage of playing against Sultai Constrictor because, in general, cards like Chandra Torch of Defiance and Glorybringer are quite well positioned against a green creature deck that doesn't have haste, that often has to tap out for one creature that's very vulnerable to those 4 damage effects. Plus, the one thing that would break that mold is something like Verdurous Gearhulk or Winding Constrictor, allowing creatures to get up to 5 toughness, and the specific black cards in Jerry Thompson's deck include Unlicensed Disintegration, which allows him to cover all his bases, have great answers to the Sultai Constrictor's creature base, and allow him to just keep attacking, forcing through damage throughout the game.
Jerry's going to use a Braid to take down Rishkar, Pima Renegade, and clear the way for 5 damage as well. He's going to follow up, being mana efficient here, using that last land to cast another Inventor's Apprentice, and that was a pretty quick start from Jerry, all told.
Yeah, so there you saw a pretty important judgment call from Jerry, electing to abrade the Rishkar Pima Renegade rather than the Glint Sleeve Siphoner. You're pretty scared to let an opponent untap with Glint Sleeve Siphoner and 2 energy, as that card advantage, you can't undo that once the opponent's drawn a couple extra cards. However, Jerry prioritizing attacking his opponent's life total there, killing the Rishkar means he gets to attack with Inventor's Apprentice. Letting the Glint Sleeve Siphoner survive means that Slater is going to pay 1 additional life on his upkeep. And crucially, cutting the mana, not allowing something like a Verdurous Gearhulk to come down ahead of schedule.
That's right. Also, the Glint Sleeve Siphoner, even with the +1/+1 counter, is at best a trade with all of Jerry Thompson's creatures, where the Rishkar was a little bit bigger.
And we may indeed see the Glint Sleeve Siphoner trade off against one of those 1-drop creatures.
And once again, here is Walking Ballista. No Winding Constrictor in sight, though, so not that explosive start that the Sultai Constrictor deck can have, but still a good one.
Yeah, this is just what he wants. He wants to be able to use his mana every turn, deploy a lot of creatures that are getting in the way, and just making sure that Jerry can't execute his game plan, at least not easily. He's going to encounter some resistance on his path to attacking for 20 damage.
Take a look at Jerry T as he surveys the scene, though really the ball is in Slater's court at the moment. He has a clean attack with the Glint Sleeve Siphoner. It has Menace, only 1 blocker back for Jerry, means he has no choice but to take the damage. And in they come. Slater Claudel tapped out at the moment, so Jerry knows that this board state will be maintained through combat.
Slater took the rather aggressive line of attacking with Glint Sleeve Siphoner, not going to trade it off. I don't know, it's pretty ambitious. This board state is super tenuous, and even a single removal spell from Jerry is going to be backbreaking in this combat step.
Jeez, he's just going for it. Is Slater. He really figures that he can win the long game here.
Or it might be to frame it the opposite way, he might not be comfortable with just the resources he has access to in his hand, and he might think, I need to get a little lucky, I need to see an extra card off Glint Sleeve Siphoner before I can make something happen that's going to allow me to win the game.
Looks like Jerry's not going to use a removal spell, perhaps doesn't have one, or just decided it's not worth it, and he's just going to trade off. Perhaps just valuing this Ether Sphere Harvester hitting the battlefield higher. He's going to play it post-combat and ship the turn back to Slater. Slater, though, is at a rather precarious 7 life, and he's going to fall down to 6 with the Glint Sleeve Siphoner trigger as well. And that's 2 turns in the air with that Ether Sphere Harvester. And this could get pretty sketchy here for Slater.
It's a very close game. That was an acceptable but not very punishing turn from Jerry, giving Slater Claudel a little bit of breathing room. I think when he decided to attack with the Glint Sleeve Siphoner, he was preparing himself mentally for something very bad to happen to him, and Jerry just making a pretty straightforward attack and adding 1 more permanent to the battlefield, no land drop. That's about the best Slater could have hoped for.
How is he going to interact with Ether Sphere Harvester? Typically, you see people either have answers for it directly or kill all the creatures that can crew it, but that is precarious at best. With such a low crew cost, any creature in Jerry's deck can crew it.
Slater really just doesn't have anything good in his hand. He has 2 lands and 2 copies of Hadana's Climb, which are not that effective, at least not in the immediate term on this board.
Yeah, if he can get it transformed, it can give him a potentially flying blocker down the line, but that is a slow process that Jerry certainly will have ways to interact with. So Hadana's Climb is going to trigger at the beginning of combat, going to put it on Walking Ballista, nice little combo in and of itself. But Slater's only going to attack with Glint Sleeve Siphoner. Has to note it, though, puts him back up to 2 energy again, which could be another card next turn, but tick-tock, Jerry Thompson is playing black-red aggro and has ways to finish you off.
Jerry picked up a 4th land for this draw step, which is going to give him greater flexibility in how to navigate this turn.
Is it a Sun-Scorched Desert as well?
I think it might be an If Near Deadlands.
Ah, okay. If Near Deadlands, fine enough here for Jerry. What does Jerry's attack situation look like?
And we should note, even though Jerry is very much the aggressor in this game, his own life total is not trivial. We've seen the Sultai Constrictor deck do pretty powerful, explosive things out of nowhere, particularly with a Hadana's Climb already on the battlefield, Walking Ballista representing an easy way to transform that, and in a way, double damage if you get to attack with a giant Ballista and then dump the counters against the opponent's life total afterwards. That's a lot of damage out of nowhere.
There's the If Near Deadlands from Thompson. And he's got Pia Nalar and Friend. He's going to use Friend to crew up that Ether Sphere Harvester and
so this
line
will
up an attack.
Force the action. It is a lethal attack, which means that Slater's going to have to commit the Walking Ballista to combat, which is very good news for Jerry.
Yeah, he's not going to get to untap with it. Jerry's going to go ahead and attack. He's got something else. Yes, he's actually going to get extremely aggressive and throw that Thopter at the Walking Ballista.
So Jerry here playing on the very specific read that Slater Claudel does not have Fatal Push. It would be a pretty disastrous play if Slater did have Fatal Push, but this is the way Jerry likes to play Magic. He has confidence. He has a specific read, and he's gonna go for it.
And he does. He forces Slater Claudel to use Walking Ballista to kill the Scrounger, else he would just be dead on board. As it stands, he falls down to just 1 life. Of course, that means the Glint Sleeve Siphoner is going to have to not be activated this turn as well. So this one has fully slipped away from Slater Claudel. I don't see any way back for him at this point. An If Near Deadlands for him, but multiple lethal threats. He's going to get in. Can he do something to survive this next turn? No flyer right now.
There's not really any big 6-mana instance that Slater Claudel can produce here. The best would be a Vraska's Contempt.
Which would actually save him for a turn.
If it does get pointed at Ethersphere Harvester, Jerry can sacrifice it via Pia Nalar's ability.
And maintain lethal.
Maintain lethal by fizzling the 2 points.
That's exactly what's happening. Let's see if Jerry goes for it. Oh, he grabbed it, but he has not actually put it in the graveyard. No, he is going to allow that to happen. Well, Slater just bought himself a turn, but there's Chandra, and that makes that turn irrelevant because Slater Claudel's going to take 2 damage from Chandra. Jerry T had the win in his hand, and he knew it, and he picks up game number 1 of our first quarterfinal match. Happening on other tables, Ganyan is playing against Andrew Shane. Gan undefeated in the Swiss portion. We'll be checking up with him if he's able to get by Andrew. That's Mono Red versus Mardu Vehicles. Matthew DiMaggio is playing Jeremy Fry. That's Red-Black, similar to what Jerry's playing here against Blue-Red Gift. And then Charles Wong, he's playing Blue-Red Gift Mirror against Grayson Roberts as our last quarterfinal match.
And that would be the opponent waiting for these players in the semifinals is going to be the winner of a Blue-Red Godpharaoh's Gift mirror match.
Yeah, that's a great point, Reed. No matter what, whoever wins this match is going to be playing Blue-Red Gift. We've got the deck list here for Sultai Constrictor. Again, this is the only copy of this Constrictor list that made it into the top 8. This is a relatively popular deck in Standard. You do see it around if you play some Standard, and you can see why.
The most unique thing about Slater Claudel's list in particular is he's made the choice to prioritize Rishkar, Pima Renegade, whereas many other players choose Jade Light Ranger for that slot. Aaron Barrich, who put this deck on the map a few weeks ago at Grand Prix Memphis, he played 3 Jade Light Ranger. Maybe he just played 4 Jade Light Ranger now that it comes back to me, but sometimes you see 3 and 1, 3 Jade Lights, 1 Rishkar. Slater Claudel going all the way up to 3 Rishkars.
Rishkar is part of the equation for some of the more explosive starts the deck can have. Turn
Definitely.
2, Wani Constrictor. Turn 3, Rishkar is nasty.
Definitely. And, if he does make it past Jerry Thompson, that could come up against Blue-Red Godpharaoh's Gift, which plays an extremely small amount of creature removal. Just being able to maximize your chance at that super punishing 2-drop, 3-drop start is a big deal.
Some good storylines happening in our other tables. I mentioned Ganyan. He is 15-0. He played his last round and won. And with that mono-red deck is trying to defeat Andrew Shane. We'll be keeping an eye on that. Nobody's ever gone wall-to-wall, end-to-end, 18-0 to win a GP. But we could see that happen here from Jan. Also, down on the bottom table, I mentioned Charles Wong. He's a local player. We had a local player, Daniel Duterte, take down the Legacy GP, and Charles Wong is carrying the flag for us here in Seattle as well, trying to keep the trophies off of the airplanes and into the houses around the area here. See if that can happen. Take a look at the sideboard here from Jerry Thompson. Reed, anything standing out to you as particular silver bullets in this matchup?
I actually think Jerry's going to improve relative to Grayson after sideboard because, everything after those 2 Argel's Bloodfasts could very well come in here, just transforming effectively into a black-red control deck because Slater Claudel's deck, it's all about single potent threats resilient threats sometimes, but there's not that much card advantage, and there's not that much to break the pattern of playing one creature per turn at sorcery speed. And a card like Doomfall is just fantastic at taking advantage of that. It can even kill Bristling Hydra. It can kill a creature through a Blossoming defense. So I don't know exactly what approach Jerry's going to take to this matchup, but he could bring in a lot more removal spells and just say, I'm going to outdo my opponent. I'm going to stick a Chandra, use that for a little bit of card advantage, and kill everything he plays. We did see in that final win-and-in match of Mono Red against Sultai Constrictor, Sultai Constrictor really failed in the second game due to being unable to stick a creature. It had cards like Hadana's Climb and Cartouche of Ambition, but never got the traction, never got to untap safely with a creature to deploy those effectively pump spells.
By the way, I was mentioning Gagnon versus Andrew Shane. We do have Game 1 update from that. Andrew Shane up a game over Gagnon, looking to break up the historic run. And I was also talking about hometown hero Charles Wong playing against a Grayson Roberts, who, as we heard, is a Minnesota area player, a Minneapolis player. And he's up a game over Charles Wong as well. Chat points out dutifully that Jerry Thompson also from Seattle these days, so that trophy would stay home if Jerry took it home as well.
Might get auctioned off to charity, but it would remain in Seattle for at least some snapshot of time.
Like through the week, maybe? All right, so a quick start here for both players. And there's my boy, Thrashing Brontodon. Welcome back to the battlefield, my friend.
That's a nice one here, Marshall, because as you see, Jerry with 2 mana and a lot of removal spells available that deal 3 damage, but he's going to need actual unlicensed disintegration to take care of that Thrashing Brontodon.
The Whining Constrictor did get taken care of by a Braid. That happens all the time. In fact, if you play Sultai Constrictor, you just kind of assume that your turn 2 Constrictor is going to die, but it just poses such a potent threat that the times when it doesn't, it's absolutely worth it.
Agreed. I think in a open field, you're super happy to have a card like that where you can score easy wins. You can have something that you're really excited to see in your opening hand. But in this matchup, post-board against Red-Black Aggro, where Jerry T, in addition to those Abrades, is bringing in Fatal Push and Doomfall, I think we're not going to see too many of those runaway Whining Constrictor games.
Jerry Thompson applying pressure now with Pia Nalar offering a trade on the ground and chipping in for 1 damage in the air. Trade not accepted here from Slater, so 17 apiece for our players, and a big turn here from Jerry. He's got 4 mana available. What can he do?
In my opinion, Chandra Torch of Defiance is probably Jerry's best card in this matchup because of its ability to kill most of the creatures in the Sultai Constrictor deck and Jerry's fairly realistic ability to protect it and untap with it. Sultai Constrictor doesn't really have any haste creatures, and short of Walking Ballista, no way to deal direct damage, so I'm really going to look for the games where Jerry's able to draw and cast Chandra as the ones that he's going to be able to win most easily. He didn't have it there. There is unlicensed disintegration on Thrashing Brontodon, but it's a little bit bittersweet because... Oh, wow.
Oh, how about Blossoming Defense, Reed?
I was going to say sacrificing the Brontodon to destroy Thopter token would be good enough, but Blossoming Defense even better. And I love that Slater Claudel has left that card in his deck and planned around it a bit, as it's just a fantastic answer to unlicensed disintegration. Used to see that a bit in Old Standard when Mardu Vehicles was the top dog of the format. But hello.
It's time for the glory to get brought in, and onto the table it goes. And that poor Thrashing Brontodon has been targeted by a lot of stuff. It looks like it's finally time for it to hit the bin.
Wow, so it may have actually worked out better for Slater if he had sacrificed it to the Thopter. I certainly don't blame him for making the decision he did, but this is unfortunate that it's going to be killed in a nice, clean way, and Jerry's going to preserve his Thopter token.
It does look, by the way, like Jerry has transitioned into the bigger version of his deck. Look at the cards we've seen. He's got Pia Nalar, Glorybringer, and 2 removal spells. Looks like a fine combination for Jerry Thompson. In the meantime, Slater's stuck kind of playing fair magic here. He's just got a Walking Ballista that he's paying full price to put a counter onto, and attacking with that and a Servant of the Conduit. That said, Jerry's at a pretty low life, 7 here with 3 counters on the Ballista.
Wow, that really snuck up on me. It hadn't been on my radar that Jerry's life total was dropping so quickly, but the Thrashing Brontodon got in a few hits, and you're right, that Walking Ballista representing a real threat.
Tick-tock. So now Jerry kind of has his hands full. You feel like he has the tools to work with here in the middle part of the game, but pressure is definitely on. Though that said, Slater Claudel also down to 10 himself.
One of the storylines for me in the development of this standard the standard format is the power level of Chandra Torch of Defiance, Rekindling Phoenix, and Glorybringer. These are some of my favorite cards in the format, but I'm not alone in that. These are cards that have won a lot of players, a lot of games. However, the best way to use them is not necessarily clear or static, and it's been evolving over the course of the format. We saw red-green monsters take down Grand Prix Memphis. We've seen red-black and Mardu vehicles be very realistic alternatives to mono-red. And, of course, Ganyan 15-0 currently with good old-fashioned mono-red. So finding the best ways to make the best use of these cards is a key to doing well in this format.
Yeah, here Jerry Thompson is putting together a 1-2 punch of Abrade your Servant of the Conduit and now play Doomfall to force you to sacrifice your Walking Ballista. Now Slater clearly is going to use these counters in response. And it looks like it was 2 upstairs and 1 to the token. And there's Fatal Push to finish off Pia Nalar, putting Jerry down to 5 life. But Slater really needs to find some pressure if he's going to finish Jerry off, because that Glorybringer is set to untap, and all he has is Servant of the Conduit. This is great news for Jerry Thompson. 1 card left in hand for Slater.
A sacrificial lamb here, Slater going, please just exert the Glorybringer. Kill my creature, don't kill me.
Go! Jerry Thompson gets to untap. Cycles a Canyon Slough. What does he find? Thompson up a game in the quarterfinals. His home GP, he lives here in Seattle. Thompson quite easily the most accomplished player in our top 8 here. He is a Pro Tour champion. Has to be the favorite to take down this GP. And he says, I'm going to play it a little safe here. Glorybringer, I am going to kill your Servant of the Conduit with Exert.
And you got to believe that Jerry knows Slater Claudel does not have Vraska's Contempt in hand, but believes that he's so far ahead here that he's going to play around the possibility of a top deck.
Is that an Argwell's Bloodfast here for Thompson? Well, there's Rishkar Pima Renegade. It's going to be a 3-3.
Boy, talk about a transform sideboard. Jerry Thompson is hardly an aggro deck at all. He's just all removal and a couple of well-placed card advantage tools.
He is going to activate Argwell's Bloodfast. That actually leaves him with transforming the Bloodfast here.
Potentially scary to be dead to a 6-mana Walking Ballista, but that's not a concern due to Argwell's Bloodfast transforming into Temple of... You want to do this for me?
Aklazats.
Very good.
It looks like he's going to go down to 1 here, though, and get another card.
This is with the transform trigger on the stack.
Exactly. And there it goes. So Jerry playing with fire, he's at 1.
Yeah, hypothetically, if Jerry's drawn all lands and Slater Claudel draws an effective card, he could win the game.
Does Slater even need an effective card here?
Well, Jerry can sacrifice Glorybringer to get up to 5.
Can't be where he wants. Can't be where he wants to be. But there you go, Rekindling Phoenix, and it's going to be back to Slater. How big of a Walking Ballista can Slater make if he were to top deck it right here?
He can make a 3-3 Walking Ballista.
So that's simply not enough. And he simply passes the turn back to Jerry Thompson, who's going to have 2 lethal threats, and it looks like he's on the verge of making the semifinals here in Seattle. Sent in his 2 bomb flyers. I think we're going to see a handshake here. That's going to do it. Jerry Thompson is through to the semifinals. Congratulations.